Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Today, Sebastian Kaleta, the Deputy Minister of Justice, released a report on the sources of finance of organisations promoting LGBT ideology. According to Kaleta, Warsaw Mayor Trzaskowski's team is very generous to them. The Town Hall has denied the findings of the report, saying that it has referred the matter to the City Attorney's Office.
Deputy Minister of Justice Sebastian Kaleta presented today a report according to which the Warsaw City Hall in 2017-2019 financed a dozen organizations promoting LGBT ideology for a total sum of over 7 million zlotys. The dangerous aspect of this practice is the fact that each of those organizations promotes in a way LGBT ideology. Very often they also get involved in the abortion movement. What does it mean? These organizations, by holding various statutory events frequently addressed to the LGBT groups, are in fact financing left-wing ideology. Thanks to those projects, the organizations have money for other activities.
Dzięki czemu te organizacje mają środki na prowadzenie innej aktywności publicznej.
The information contained in the report is a bunch of lies and manipulations, says the spokesman of the Warsaw City Hall, Kamil Dąbrowa. We are not going to leave that with no answer, and we will file a complaint with the city attorney. Education or prevention cannot be called promotion of certain behaviors. The Foundation for Civic Education was doing just that, education against AIDS and HIV, and we have clear success in that field. The cases of HIV are going down in the city of Warsaw, and we have hard evidence for that. According to Dobromir Sośnierz from the Confederation Party, the actions of the Warsaw authorities are against personal beliefs neutrality and should be observed by local governments. I am not surprised with the report. I would not expect anything else from the present mayor of Warsaw. We are for respecting citizens' money and not spending it on homosexuals or heterosexuals who should have a sexual orientation at home, and the public money spending should not depend on who sleeps with whom. The complete Kaleta report has 120 pages and can be accessed on his website with a link from his Facebook and Twitter profiles under SJ Kaleta.
Talks under the Normandy format, created in 2014 by France, Germany, Russia and Ukraine, are continuing in Paris. The goal of the talks is to bring about an end to the armed conflict in Ukraine. Russia has occupied Crimea and eastern Ukraine since 2014. At the talks, the first face-to-face meeting between the presidents of Russia and Ukraine, Vladimir Putin and Volodymyr Zelensky, has taken place.
Vladimir Putin and the host of the meeting, French President Emmanuel Macron, were joined by German Chancellor Angela Merkel and President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky. The main topic of the summit is said to be the issue of settling the conflict in Donbass in eastern Ukraine, which has been continuing since 2014. The issue of Russian-Ukraine energy cooperation was also to be tackled during the meeting. Talks are currently underway on a new contract regarding the transit of Russian gas through western Ukraine. The current agreement expires at the end of December.
The protests in Kiev against President Volodymyr Zelensky are continuing. Protesters are worried that during the meeting in France, President Zelensky will make concessions to Russia's President Putin at the expense of Ukraine's independence.
I'm not happy with Zelensky's actions on the international arena. I don't know why and what for he went to France. If he makes an agreement which means a capitulation, I will stay here and I will still be protesting. I support Ukraine's victory, but I don't support mottos like "We are brothers" or "We want peace."
For international meetings like this, we have to go there to defend Ukraine and not sell it out. All these people came here to support the president so that he have enough strength to defend our homeland and not capitulate.
Firstly, President Zelensky will meet the President of France, Emmanuel Macron, one-to-one. After the meeting, he will meet with Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel. Then the consultations in the Normandy format with the 4 prime ministers will take place. The last point of the meeting will be a meeting with the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin.
Mass protests are continuing in France against the government's planned reform of the pension system. Despite the protests, President Macron and the government of Prime Minister Philippe are determined to make what they see as necessary changes to create a unified pension system from the 42 current systems, each with different retirement ages.
The Yellow Vests movement in France has returned with full force in the protests against pension reform. Demonstrators with many thousand participants in Paris and other cities have been continuing since Saturday, and on Sunday there were brutal clashes with police. However, the French Prime Minister Edouard Philippe announced in an interview for the Le Journal du Dimanche Weekly that the announced reform will be carried out to the end.
I am determined to carry out this pension reform to the end. If we do not carry out a thorough, serious and progressive reform now, then someone else will do it in the future, but much more brutally.
Railway and urban transport workers are on strike against the announced reform. Teachers, students, police, garbage collectors and lawyers have joined the strike. The chaos in public transport is widespread in France. Does the strike affect your day-to-day life?
Grève impacte votre vie quotidienne?
Yes.
Ouais. Ça veut dire que
Do you now have to get up earlier than usual?
Yes, this is true.
What do you think about the strike and the claims of those striking?
Du principe de la grève?
I'm sorry, I do not want to comment. I must call my Uber. I had to rearrange my daily plan. I usually leave work at 1 p.m, but now I have to work at least until 3:30 p.m. On Saturday, I couldn't go to work as my train did not arrive.
Passengers are being affected by difficulties with public transport throughout France. Most trams, buses and trains do not run. At 7 a.m. in the capital region, you could see traffic jams up to 300 kilometers long. The people of Paris are divided on the legitimacy of the strike.
I'm not totally opposed to the strike, but I do have some difficulty understanding the claims of the strikers, and I believe that this movement is disproportionate to its outcomes, which have the potential to greatly influence those surrounding the capital region.
I fully support the strikers, even if it means making changes. I'm with them and I agree with their strike. French Prime Minister Paul Eluard is to present details on the pension reform. However, the head of the General Confederation of Labour, Philippe Martinez, warned that the strike would last until the government completely withdraws from the planned changes.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Hello, and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. The forecast for tonight calls for partly cloudy skies throughout the country, and we can expect rain in Szczecin and Koszalin. The temperatures will vary this evening between 1 and 4 degrees. Tomorrow we can expect showers in Warsaw and Poznań, and sleet in the cities of Koszalin and Zielona Góra. Olsztyn will see cloudy skies, and the rest of the country can expect partly cloudy skies. The next 3 days will bring partly cloudy and cloudy skies to Poland. On Thursday we can expect sleet in the south, and on Friday the front should move towards the northeast, where we can expect showers and snow. That is all for now. I thank you for joining us, and I invite you to stay with us for Poland Daily Business.
Poland Daily Business Edition. Matthew Thurmond is our guest tonight. Welcome to the show.
Always a pleasure, Alex.
Yeah, in 2015 you came here to this very studio and said that Donald Trump is going to win the election in the United States. We didn't believe quite to it, yet it's true. What about 2020?
Even bigger. So his mandate is going to expand massively. I mean, he drew, Steve Bannon, my mentor, says, he drew an inside straight, a poker term of like he hit a 1 in 10 shot to win by getting Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio. Well, no, Ohio was a bigger mandate, but Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, very, very small spreads of getting Republican vote over Democrats, because Union Rust Belt Democrats, FDR Democrats, many Polish Americans, for instance, they voted for him because transgender bathrooms and far-left ideology don't resonate. These are people whose manufacturing industries have been hollowed out by globalization, offshoring, China, and that what Trump was saying, economic nationalism, fighting for the American worker, bringing manufacturing back to the Rust Belt, places like Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Indiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota. he's done it. I mean, he's actually he's making progress on his promises. He's securing the border. He's fighting for American taxpayers, whether it's NATO or whether it's manufacturing. He's fighting against China, whether it's the dumping of goods or the intellectual property theft or the manufacturing racing to the bottom in labor costs. He's fighting for all this, and the results are tangible. Household income in the United States is the highest it's ever been, $66,000 a year, up $5,000 in 3 years. In Obama's 8 years, it was up $1,000. The joblessness is at its lowest rate in American history, including blacks and Hispanics. The securing the border, nobody's happier than Hispanics who have the right to vote, who are legal, who are American citizens, in voting for a president who's going to secure the border and secure their job opportunities so that they can get their wages that don't stagnate, as opposed to being undercut by illegals who cross the border and will work for half the wage that legal Americans who have to pay legal taxes are willing to work for. So all of these things are leading to a dynamic where I think in 2020, biggest landslide since Ronald Reagan, 1984. Ronald Reagan won every single state except Minnesota, where his opponent Walter Mondale was from. The irony is that now Trump will win Minnesota as well. He only lost it by 1 point or so in the last election. I suggested he would win it. Now he will win it. Wisconsin, Michigan, Western Pennsylvania will be much bigger mandates, much bigger. Instead of 10, 20, 30, 40,000 votes, he's going to win by hundreds of thousands of votes in these states. My call is that he gets 343 electoral votes, which is in juxtaposition to the 304 he received in the last election. He will pick up every single state he received in 2016, plus Minnesota, plus New Hampshire, and plus 3 states due to the Hispanic vote, Colorado, Nevada, New Mexico, who are very happy to see the border secured. I think he's going to get 35 to 40% of the Hispanic vote, 30+% of the black vote. This is going to make the left crazy. They won't be able to believe that, you know, those people that they've tried to undermine in having their own opinion by dividing them through identity politics, they are going to stand with President Trump because they see America is the healthiest it's ever been, despite the left trying to do everything they can to destroy America, to undermine America, to negate a presidential election and a functioning democracy with an honest mandate, with Russia collusion. Now this Ukraine quid pro quo. He's a racist.
Let's move away of this BS that's going to be fed through the mainstream media in the United States.
Alex, so much BS.
Right, but let us focus on China and why Donald Trump is taking on China. We've heard for years that this is beneficial for America, the moving away of the factories. The Americans will design apples and Chinese will produce them, and financial elite from New York will benefit of that.
Well, they will. So the rise of China and the globalization, the breaking down of sovereign borders economically, the way capital flows across borders without any penalties, that is good for 2 cohorts. That is good for the owners of the factories, for the manufacturing elite, for the multinational corporations who are very happy to race to the bottom in labor costs, to see wages go down and down and down because that's their biggest cost input. So they offshore jobs to China. And on the flip side, the second derivative effect of the benefit of the manufacturers is the Wall Street elite, the financial elite, who are their bankers, who are the ones who manage their capital for them. It's to their benefit as well. You know who loses? The silent majority, the middle and working class, the manufacturing workforce.
And they are being told by media to shut up because they don't understand the big picture.
Because the media elite work for the Wall Street elite and the economic business elite, because they make their money through those mechanisms. So when you go to Youngstown, Ohio, a place that was a Democrat stronghold for decades, Union Rust Belt, that Trump won, you go to Youngstown, I've been to Youngstown, and it's a place where you could see that in the 20s, 30s, and 40s and 50s, it was thriving, the architecture, the downtown. And now you go in the 90s and 2000s with the rise of China and offshoring jobs and the knowledge economy where manufacturing gets hollowed out. This city is hollowed out. You can feel the desperation. And now it's starting to see an uptick. It's starting to see a reversal of fortune, of trend, back to job creation in places like this. This was what Trump ran on. This is what he's delivering. This is the economic nationalism that Bannon instilled in him, and it's a very healthy thing.
Let's keep to this China focus. Let's keep focused to this China issue because this is important. It's like overlooked danger
in
to
Europe,
the Western world.
In Europe, now Trump gets it because Bannon really instilled this in him. That the biggest threat. Now we've got a lot of threats. I mean, we've always have the overhanging threat of leftism run amok, whether that's in the American Academy stifling free speech, or in German press and Scandinavian press stifling free speech. We've got the Islamofascist fascist threat and the immigration threat, the threat that when borders break down, rule of law breaks down, prosperity reverses. We've seen that in Europe. French economy stagnant. We've seen that in places in the U.S. because of immigration. We've seen the Islamo-fascist threat. Terrorists with bombs strapped to their chests, blowing themselves up in town squares, both in the U.S. and Europe. Thankfully not in Poland, hopefully never will be in Poland or Central Europe. Viktor Orban, though I have my issues with him, is the modern-day Jan Sobieski of Central Europe for fighting the Euro overreach of the left in border sovereignty and immigration migrant policy. But then the biggest threat that people, especially in Europe, are not talking about, and what really worries me is when I land in Poland and I see Huawei signs everywhere, is the threat of a Chinese hegemony. China plays the long game. They're looking to dominate the global scene economically, politically, socially for the next 500 years, and they're willing to invest the next 50 years to set the stage for that. And they're doing that with Huawei, which is a sleeper cell with their advanced 5G, subsidized by the Communist Party, not competitive economically, but subsidized by the Chinese labor force and the communist apparatus, to do a backdoor into everybody's intelligence and communications networks. Every developed world, they're here in Poland. I think Morawiecki gets the issue. I know he's had high-ranking conversations with those in America who also see this issue. And, Bannon's leading the charge on this. I urge all to go online and watch Claws of the Red Dragon, a docudrama he filmed hour-long about Huawei in Canada. Meng Wanzhou, the daughter of the Huawei chairman, arrested in Canada ostensibly for spying and unfair competitive business practices. These are important issues. Poles need to be aware. Europeans need to be aware. Thankfully, Trump is aware. Americans are aware. And we will fight back against what China's doing, including in Hong Kong right now, which is an absolute abortion and a breach of all human rights and dignity of a sovereign nation.
Matthew Thurman, thank you very much for this conversation.
My pleasure.
And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Hello, and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. The forecast for tonight calls for partly cloudy skies throughout the country, and we can expect rain in Szczecin and Koszalin. The temperatures will vary this evening between 1 and 4 degrees. Tomorrow, we can expect showers in Warsaw and Poznań, and sleet in the cities of Koszalin and Zielona Góra. Olsztyn will see cloudy skies, and the rest of the country can expect partly cloudy skies. The next 3 days will bring partly cloudy and cloudy skies to Poland. On Thursday, we can expect sleet in the south, and on Friday, the front should move towards the northeast, where we can expect showers and snow. That is all for now. I thank you for joining us, and I invite you to stay with us for Poland Daily Business.
Good day, everyone. My name is Maria Kądzielska, and welcome to Poland Daily Culture. In this series of programs, I'll be talking to Julia Gintrowska, daughter of the noted Polish songwriter and singer Przemysław Gintrowski. Julia, thank you for being with us.
Hi, thank you. It's a pleasure.
But before we start the interview, let's listen how Julia interpreted one of her father's well-loved songs.
Tylko ta woń zamorskich roślin, przyjęcie w domu burżuła. Fortepian gada o miłości, wirują fraki w trzecim P. Bardzo naiwna Francja, smętna, szelest krynolin, bakla szmin. Tylko wilgotne, brudne piętra, tylko spowiały buryty. Tylko słoneczne sny kochanków, coraz jaśniejsze z każdym dniem. Paryski bulwar o poranku nad przerażonym miastem knie.
Julia, you are a member of a jury giving an Gintrowski Award. And this award is given already since 3 years. And also this year, there are people already nominated. and hopefully during the concert, something will be left after us. One of the person of culture will be awarded with his award. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you like it?
Yeah, definitely. It's very important to give a prize of my dad. The prize is about the freedom in the culture. So it's about what my father fight actually during PRL. And I think it's very important to show young people the way we should use culture actually to promote this freedom, especially when we nowadays take a lot of freedom.
You mean that nowadays we have a lot of freedom to use in a different ways, but the one which, for example, your father and Kaczmarski and Łapiński fought for, we have it, but we not always use it the best way, do we?
You know, it's questions to other people. I think the problem is that we don't, not freedom, when we don't have freedom, it feels like, and this is the main problem.
And tell us, who were the prize winners so far? So obviously you cannot give us the secret who is going to be winner this year.
I'm sorry. Yeah, but the first year we had 3 actually prize winners: Stanisława Celińska, Antonina Krzysztoń, and Polkowski. So this was the first year. The second year was very close, actually, friend of my dad, Ewa Błaszczyk.
Which is an actress, a singer, and also...
Yes, she actually sang on the first concert with us, so yeah, she's an amazing woman. And last year, it was Stanisław Pieczka.
So a very already actor with huge history, who played in almost every important movie.
Yeah, it was very touching because he actually is he did so many things, and you know, I think it's important to him to be nominated.
And because you knew your father, and we of course know him through his music, we know him through what he did with his songs, and what he was interested in. But as if you tell, what he most treasured in artists, what was the most important for him in artists?
I think the originality, authenticity, this freedom, going your path. He very disagree when someone doesn't have its own opinion. He had a very concrete system of values, and he liked persons who have self-confidence, who know what they want to do. Yeah.
And if he were in the jury, what do you know maybe if he what would be his choices, for example?
I think the first prize would be all the time for Zbigniew Herbert.
For Herbert, yeah.
Yeah, Zbigniew Herbert, definitely. He loved him, like his poetry.
But Herbert is not alive, so we cannot really give him an award.
It's hard for me to choose one person from alive people.
But could you tell us more about his relationship with Herbert then? Because it was pretty special. Have you yourself ever met Herbert?
No. Actually, I was too small.
Yes.
I don't remember, but I think he died in 2001.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, so I had 3 years actually. So even though I could met him, but I don't remember. I wouldn't remember that. So that's the problem. Actually, my dad didn't meet him a lot of times. He loved actually meetings with him because he was very specific person and he had his funny stories with him.
Tell us one funny story for the ending.
He tell about this all the time when once he gave him a postcard where he writes the songwriter of Gintrowski.
So Herbert, our great poet who actually should get Nobel Prize, finished the postcard to your dad that he's a songwriter of Przemysław Gintrowski.
He didn't win
He didn't win the Nobel Prize, but he
didn't, yeah.
There's
but
a
my
huge
dad
debate
was
that
very upset. But he should win. Why he didn't? He was upset about it.
So we could dedicate this episode to Herbert as one of our greatest poets. And thank you for watching Poland Daily Culture.
Welcome back to Poland Daily History, where we're talking about Poland's geopolitical situation. And I'm with Albert Swieczynski, an expert on geopolitical affairs. Albert, we've been mentioning Russia throughout our programs, but it's probably worth going back, actually, and quite interesting to go back to 1648, when we had some inevitable wars between Poland and Russia.
Absolutely, and 1648 is the beginning of the Cossack uprising led by Khmelnytsky, by Bogdan Khmelnytsky. When it comes to geopolitics and how there are many reverberations of past events, the Khmelnytsky uprising and what followed after, which was the Polish-Russian War that lasted for 13 years, from 1654 till 60-67, and the Deluge. They all had thorough implications, which I hope I will mention in a bit.
I mean, that again, it's funny. There are always these parallels in history. That they were in the midst of a war with Russia, we then also have to face a war with Sweden.
Absolutely. But it gets interesting because the Khmelnytsky rebellion begins for many reasons. There were political reasons, such as the Polish state not willing to. Polish king not willing to. There was a war planned to go ahead with the Ottoman Empire and the Crimean Khanate. This couldn't happen because there was no willingness of the magnates, of the richest strata of the Polish society to provide money for it, which in turn meant we could increase the number of Cossacks, the registered Cossacks, so to speak, that used to fight for the Polish state, which angered them greatly. Then there was the magnates themselves trying to turn the Cossacks, which were traditionally very wild and very free, and focus on war fighting, trying to force them into work in the field, into peasantry. And then there were the personal slights that Khmelnytsky suffered from the Poles. His wife, I believe, was taken prisoner by one of the Polish magnates, and all those things led to the uprising, which was a beginning. I would say it started to put Poland on a downward trajectory, which ultimately, over a century later ended in partitions of Poland.
And a conflict with Russia, of course, which has sort of never really gone away.
Which interestingly, the final accord of all that affairs happened in 2014 when Russia took over Crimea and eastern parts of Ukraine. Because what happened is, in 1654, the Pereyaslav Agreement is struck between the Cossacks and the Russians, which is also what later both the Russian and the Soviet historiography claimed, used as a claim that Ukraine is inextricably linked to Russia. It's a single space, so to speak. And with the Pereyaslav Agreement in 1654, Khmelnytsky pledges allegiance to Russia. Russia immediately, on the basis of that agreement, attacks Poland. The war lasts for 13 years. And is ended with a Treaty of Andrushów, in which Poland had to give up the Smolensk stronghold
and Kiev and
yes,
that whole
sure.
the whole left bank.
Yes.
of
left bank of Ukraine.
Known as the left bank of Ukraine.
Yeah, along the Dnieper River.
Eastern bank, for those who have an atlas in front of them.
This is because, of course, Dnieper ends in the Black Sea. So if you look at how the stream works there.
Yes, if you follow the flow of the river, otherwise it's a bit confusing. Yes, and of course it's probably worth saying that of course the slightly earlier war in 1604 to 1618, the Russian-Polish War, which actually one of the results of that war, of course, was to put the Romanovs ultimately. I'm sort of skipping through a lot of history, but it's when the Romanovs became. The rulers of Russia, and they survived until 1917.
Yes, and it ended the previous dynasty, which then went on theoretically to Rurik, who established the Kievan Rus, the very basis of the well, really not really even Ukrainian, but of in a way a Russian state. This is how.
And probably also mentioning, obviously, this war between Russia and Poland, but at the same time, the deluge, which of course has been made famous in literature, which is the Swedish from about 1655 to 1660, which I think is notable for its cultural destruction. In terms of damage to towns.
And economic, yes.
And economy. I mean, it's really quite remarkable.
Comparable, some say comparable to the destruction Poland experienced during the Second World War.
Which is actually remarkable for at that time you could wreak so much havoc.
I mean, Swedes were very impressive. They had a low revolutionary military affairs on their own. They had conscription-based army. And a series of very talented rulers and advisors to those rulers, which permitted them great success. And that starts in 1654. In 1655. What is interesting, however, going back to the Polish-Russian War, is it began in 1654. 300 years later, in 1954, to celebrate the 300th anniversary, Crimea was given to the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic just as a low gift. It was meaningless at the time. It was a single state. But of course, it had thorough consequences later. And in 2014, Russia took it back. So,
and it is actually, isn't it? That's one of the things why I like history. These parallels, these events, which at the time seemed so insignificant, in later years become very significant. I think it's also the Russian-Polish War was probably the time when, from a Russian point of view, the armies started to be better organized, and it probably laid the military foundations for what happened under Peter the Great and Catherine the Great, in terms of the Russian army becoming more professional is a modern word, but more put together on a sounder basis.
Sure. And also far more numerous as well, and well organized. This absolutely is the case, which then became the hallmark of what the world considers the Soviet armies to be till this day, even though that is not necessarily the case anymore.
No. And it's interesting that Poland, although it sort of did quite a lot, so this will sound terrible, but did quite a lot for Russia, setting Russia on the right course, gave them the Romanovs, encouraged them to have professional armies, which was to have dramatic consequences years later.
And entered a series of wars, which were the Deluge, the Polish-Russian War, the uprising, that were catastrophically exhausting for the Polish state. One thing that was good was that we had a terrific cadre of officers and experienced warfighters, which benefited greatly, I would imagine, the entire Europe in 1683, because basically,
of course,
by then we were 40 years into almost 40 years into constant warfare. So that was the only thing.
And that, of course, we saw another great Polish king, Jan Sobieski. But that is probably for another day, Albert. But again, many thanks for this quick canter through Polish geopolitics. Thank you.
Thank you.
And here we are in Ostroda. So it was just about 45-minute drive from Nijica to, which is on the southern area of the Missouri Lake District, and also a southern outpost of the Teutonic Knights. And we can see here another example. And I said before that, I mean, it's curious, as you look at this, I said before that the Teutonic Knights were charged with building hospitals rather than fortresses. This looks more like a hospital in a sense. And I'm just wondering if they had some sense that they were building, they would build a sort of fortified hospital they could use, an ostensible hospital they could use as a fortress if they needed to. Because it's very solid, but yet it doesn't look like the fortress at Nijica, does it? Where we are now, we're on the Drveca River, and that's the Drveca Lake, which is in Ostroda. And the Drveca River flows from the right-hand side of the Wisła. So the Wisła's that direction, and it comes to us over here. The lake, the town's quite substantial lake is over here. And the thing to remember is this is the district of lakes. And this is just one of the lakes on the fringe of the Missouri, Varmia and Missouri Lake District. There are many, many lakes, and lakes are very important to Poles. They use them for sailing, they use them for all kinds of boating recreation, and the lake is at least as important as the sea is here. And that may be because the Baltic is so cold most of the time that it's more pleasurable to have fun in lakes. I must ask some friends about that. At least that's the way I look at it. So behind me you see this is a substantial building, and it's been, of course, restored with nice grants from the European Union. At any rate, this is the town of Ostroda. It's a very nice town. It's got the Prussian, German architecture. Much of it is still intact, and it's been beautifully kept up and in places restored. So this is a really, really nice little town with a beautiful lake attached and not a bad castle. Well, just come with me and we'll go inside and take a look in the courtyard.
Don't be surprised if on your trip to Gdansk you decide that it looks a lot like Amsterdam. They are old-time sister cities as part of the Hanseatic League. That's the great trading league of several hundred years ago. Those tall, pointed houses mark the architecture of the time. Gdansk today is a beautiful thing to see. The colorful facades of the Long Market tempt a stroll. This Polish port city on the Baltic has been known for its amber trade for 1,000 years. There's much to say and do in Gdansk, but for the purposes of this series of episodes, we are only going to be looking at the old town and taking a stroll around and talking with a couple of friends. This is the first of many subsequent visits to Gdansk. Like Warsaw, it is full of riches and shares a place on the coast with its two sister cities, Sopot and Gdynia. Home to some of the most momentous events of the 20th century, Gdansk was the place where World War II started, and was also the place where the Solidarity movement rose and became prominent enough in the world and in Poland to change the nature of society in Europe. It's a great city, and without further delay, let's go walk about. Thanks for watching Poland Daily. My name is Will Richardson, and we appreciate it. Like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube, and please subscribe. And now, let's take a walk around Gdansk.
Well, this is magnificent, isn't it? This is the interior, the courtyard of this castle or this hospital, this fortress, whatever it was. It probably had mixed uses, but it is marvelously preserved. And you can see the clean lines of its design. Here we can see where the brick has been remade. The older brick at the top, and this whole arch has been rebuilt in here and lovingly restored. And it's Gothic, of course, you can tell by the arch with the point in the top that it's Gothic. So, as we go around, look at this doorway. They weren't all very tall, were they? Look at this. You could get through, but you had to be careful not to bump your head if you were taller than me. And in here, this is just a public library now and a cultural center for the town. I don't think this wagon is very Teutonic, but it gives a nice, a nice flavor, I suppose. Yeah. I don't know who this fine lady is, but this obviously has some kind of significance, maybe a goddess of the water or something like that. And here, at any rate, this is mostly just a library. Not just a library, but that's what it is. And no doubt contains plenty of volumes on the history locally and whatever else is might find in a library. Coat of arms of Ostruda here. Ostruda, I should say. It's Ostruda. And that's it. So a nice walk around the courtyard of a Teutonic castle here in Ostruda. Isn't that nice? Very pleasant indeed. Okay, let's go now and have a look. Let's have a look at the lake. There's a very nice lake across the street.